Hello and welcome back to the Grapple Theory podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today, and you're in for a real treat today because we've got a huge special guests on today. They are the new owners of Progress Wrestling, Lee McAteer and Martyn. They're going to be joining us to speak about the acquisition of Progress, their favourite things about the company, what's in store for the future of the company, the champion Cara Noir, of course, ahead of this huge 10th anniversary week they've got coming up. 4 shows in 1 week, absolutely bonkers, but it's going to be absolutely incredible as well. They'll be talking to us through all that, as well as some of their favourite moments so far, and of course their 50% acquisition of TNT Extreme as well, which is just going to be, it's all fascinating stuff. You're going to love it. It's great. Have fun listening to them. We're going to get straight into the interview. Lee and Martyn, thanks so much for joining me here today. First of all, I mean, we've got to ask the obvious question, didn't we? How did this all come about? How did it come to be that you guys are the new owners of Progress Wrestling?
Well, I can start that off with Lee asking me, do you want to get involved in a professional wrestling business called Progress? And unfortunately, I said, what? Lee can pick up why on earth he asked that question.
So, great question. So, I first started having conversations with members of Progress, I think it was in March of last year. And it was going back and forth. And it was more so from a point of view in wanting to help, purely because at the time I owned Wrestling Travel, which I've now sold. But I had an opportunity to give a bit of help behind the scenes, not just to Progress, but to a number of other promotions. And from that, the conversation started to, excuse the Freudian slip, kind of progress forward. And then one thing led to another, and ultimately we closed the deal in December. And of course, we haven't just got Progress now. We're very fortunate to have 50% of TNT Extreme Wrestling with Jay Apter. And we're really up for this, and we're really wanting to make that difference. I appreciate that in terms of some of the bits that we put out there may sound like sound bites, but the reality is it's true what we're saying. We want to put the word professional into professional wrestling, and we've put a number of different initiatives together that we feel are bringing the entire sector up to a better level than it was before. But we're not going to sit here and pretend that we know him, because we don't. We're not going to sit here and pretend we're the next Vince McMahon's or Tony Khan's. You know, we're Lee McAteer and Martyn, and we're going to give it the very best that we've got to provide a fantastic platform for the talent and the fans to enjoy.
And moving on from that then, Martyn, I'll pick up on what you said in a little bit, but Lee, I guess then for you, I guess the key question is not, I guess why this, but why Progress specifically? Obviously, there's so many great British wrestling promotions out there. What is it about Progress in terms of, again, first wanting to help and then leading into buying it, that attracted you so much?
Well, I mean, again, I appreciate I'm definitely biased now, of course I am. But when I did the research and I was looking at all the promotions, and I went through everything from social media stats to subscribers and everything in between. And for me, and I still believe this is the case, is that Progress is the number one. And from some of the people that I'd spoken to at the time who had no idea what was potentially happening behind the scenes, they all said to me that it was number one. A number of the mainstream promotions and our partners still think that Progress is number one. And whilst it's down to others to decide what number one looks like, whether that's in terms of fans, social media, revenue, something of all of the above, it was my belief that Progress was number one. And at the same time, I felt as though TNT Extreme Wrestling was Britain's best kept secret.
Absolutely.
And I think what Jay has done there is fantastic. And to have the opportunity to have both of them, whilst very separate brands, and the intention is to keep them separate, is they marry very well together in terms of the infrastructure that we're trying to put in. And it was funny because when I first spoke to Alex McCarthy from TalkSport, and he said to me, "Come on then, who is it?" And I said, "Progress." I don't think it was what he was expecting. I think he was expecting maybe another promotion that's out there currently. But it's fair to say that Bestie and I like a challenge. We know that there were certain things that needed to change, and we're certainly working very hard behind the scenes to do that. But again, appreciate that on paper we're the new owners of Progress, but we're very much about the custodian side of things, because we want the fans to be able to be very part of that process, because we understand how important progress is to the wider community. And Bessie and I, albeit it took a lot of time, we spoke to as many of the Club Progress members as we could. I even spoke to them when I had COVID and I lost my voice, and Mike Mad Dog Angus was helping with the calls because I couldn't speak much more. But it was great to understand what the fans felt, and also at the same time understand why progress was so important to their community, why coming to the ballroom on a Sunday was such an important part of their life. And we wanted to get to grips with how to move things forward. You know, it's a new era, and of course we're going to be compared to some of the amazing moments of Progress's past in terms of some of those amazing matches. But at the end of the day, it's a new era, and we're so proud to be part of that process.
And Martyn, for yourself, like you said, mentioning about that sort of first interaction with Lee in terms of, you know, purchasing Progress. I mean, how was that for you in terms of how aware were you? Because we spoke a little bit before we started recording about, you know, sort of your history with wrestling, but how aware were you of Progress, of its importance in British wrestling, and going into that purchase? How aware were you of that?
Yeah, no, that's very easy to quantify. Not aware of it at all, I'll be honest. I'm not going to come here pretending I am something. I'll come here, I'm an absolutely converted fan to both British wrestling, as I'm now becoming much more aware of it, and Progress. Clearly, before we bought the business, I did quite a bit of homework, research, most of it coming from Lee. Also Cal, who we've got on board, who's a massive wrestling fan, was sending me all sorts of clips, videos, things to watch. And after a while, I suddenly realised we had something really special in Progress. It was a promotion that the founders had created pre-COVID, you know, pre-speaking out, pre the health of the former owners. It was an astounding promotion, really well respected, not just in the UK, but I would say across the world.
Yeah, for sure.
We developed a really strong relationship and a very healthy relationship with WWE, the only English promoter to have that. And I just felt it was a business that had almost, you know, and okay, the pandemic knocked the stuffing out of lots of businesses, but particularly Progress. It had lost a lot of direction, it had lost its drive, lost its identity, but it was there, it was ready to be rekindled. And sort of what really underpinned that, when Lee and I took the decision that we would make personal phone calls to all of our fan club, our Club Progress members, 300 and, well, 400-ish. And we were sort of largely not ridiculed for it, but it was like, oh, that's like a bit of a publicity stunt. You know, when on earth are you going to do that? And we did it 5 successive nights, taking about, you know, 4 or 5 hours each night to do it. Spoke to them. We had some beautiful responses from the vast majority of everybody who, after the initial surprise, just really opened up about their passion, their love of Progress. You know, they were pleased that it had been given a breath, you know, a new life, a new lease from 2 people who had lots of energy, lots of passion, lots of enthusiasm to rekindle not only what Progress had been, but, you know, hopefully add our own sort of imprint on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what we're doing, and not just our own imprint, but others around us. James Amner, our creative director, has been an absolute rock in keeping the promotion going. His vision of the creativity has shone through the first 3 episodes, the first 3 chapters since we've come back. You know, you're very excited about Cara and Gresham coming up in a couple of weeks, March the 20th, Electric Ballroom, Sunday, be there, 20th of March.
It's our cheap plug, by the way.
And then, you know, throughout that 10th anniversary week, we've got an all-women's event, and then what's called patterned, everything patterned, all of our wrestlers of colour. And then finishing up at the end of the week, 10th anniversary, Cara against Ilya.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a huge week. I mean, I was going to get onto that, but as you bring it up, I mean, First of all, I mean, just incredible. 4 shows in a week is mental, if you don't mind me saying. It's absolutely
I totally agree.
But so, you know, going into that, like, I think a lot of fans would have just been happy with an anniversary show, but you guys have really pushed the boat up. 4 shows, like you say, 4 completely different shows as well, and all women's one, everything patterned with Roy Johnson as well, incredible. And obviously the show before that with Cara Gresham. I mean, I guess why 4 shows in a week, but also how important was it for you guys to showcase that diversity in those 4 shows?
I think, let me just get on the phone to James. I'm asking that question because I've never really had a proper answer. I think what he wanted for us to do was to make the 10th anniversary a special week. You know, these anniversaries are special. You know, we didn't have an 8th or a 9th. So I think it's as much a reward for all the loyal fans, and also for the talent as well. You know, we've got the bookend of those 2 great fights involving Cara, and in the middle we're recognising the 2, you know, significantly diverse elements of our talent. So I think that is fundamentally the reason. It's a great week of wrestling, a reward for our fans, and you know, it gives everybody more of an opportunity to come and see us. We've sold out pretty much the first 3 shows that we've had. I'm pretty sure there'll be different people coming to those 4 shows, so it's giving others an opportunity to come and see. And I think as regards the all women's and the wrestlers of colour, it's giving people who are not traditional wrestling fans an opportunity to see what it's all about. So we're reaching out to different groups other than pure wrestling fans here to widen our audience, and we're getting some really interesting feedback on that, some of which will become clear over the next few weeks. But yeah, no, I think we're probably wanting to do is showcase the diversity of professional wrestling in this country. Yeah, absolutely, and I think it does that perfectly, for sure. And we'll get more into sort of each of those shows in a little bit. But going back to sort of having acquired Progress, obviously yourself, Martyn, sort of relatively new, like you admit to wrestling. Lee, obviously been involved in wrestling for a long time. So having purchased Progress, obviously, again, Lee, sort of having to, you know, been to shows before as a fan. But that first Progress show with the fans back, with you guys in charge, how did that feel? Because I imagine that didn't feel just like a normal wrestling show for you.
I mean, I have to say, gosh, what a great question. It was an unbelievable feeling because so many people had worked so hard behind the scenes to make it happen. And to see it all come to life, to see all the fans come back, to actually put faces to names, to conversations that we'd had by speaking to all the Club Progress members, and you know, the numbers that Bessie talked about were probably just the ones that we got through to speaking to. We still, you know, there was a lot of voicemails, you know, in there as well. Ironically, I think the average phone call for me was about 21 minutes for the people that I'd spoken to, and I think there was one phone call that was like 2.5 hours. I think it was. But it was fantastic, and it's you know, it was little things. It's, yes, we're doing things in a different way. We're not going to pretend and sit here and say that we are exactly what Progress was in the beginning in terms of punk rock. But we treat people how we want to be treated, and that's the reason why we try and greet the fans as they come in, because we're so appreciative of the fact that they're willing to spend their hard-earned cash coming to a Progress show, and that goes 2 ways. You know, you treat people how you want to be treated. That's how I've always worked, and I like to think my proven track records show that, and Bestie is 100% the same. You see people's reactions to everybody coming back, the reaction to, for example, Anthony Ogogo coming into that first show, and it was fantastic. And I mean, what was quite funny was that, you know, Bestie and I would never ask someone to do a job that we either haven't done or wouldn't continue to do ourselves, and we were all mucking in. And you know, what was quite funny, you know, somebody tweeted me saying I was a mark because I was filming parts of the matches. The reality is, it was actually me helping out on social media, because that's what the new Progress structure is all about. And we're very fortunate the fact that we've got the likes of Paul Benson, Khalil Butt, Ross Olcock, Mike Angus, and others that you know, that joined the team alongside some of the previous creative team that we've inherited. And we're trying to put this new structure together to the point where it's exciting to come to a Progress show, and you understand that you've got to be there live in person to experience it in full.
Yeah.
And for us, we feel as though we're on our way to achieving that. And by getting, for example, mainstream media such as the Daily Star, the Metro, and others to actually discuss British wrestling again, we would like to think shows that it's going in the right direction. But truthfully, Jamie, there is no greater feeling than seeing the excitement from the fans in the ballroom, or dare I say it, in any of the venues that we've been in or will be in the future. It's an experience that is just truly wonderful, and we sincerely hope that experience continues to be a great one for all the fans and the talent.
Yeah.
I would probably sum it up a little bit more succinct with just a mixture of two words: relief and elation.
I think that's perfect. I think that's perfect and perfectly understandable as well, and especially after all the work that's gone into it as well. I can imagine that. Yeah, I can't imagine what those few weeks leading up to that show were like for you guys in terms of like the stress levels.
Yeah, but you know what? It's we look back on those first shows with pride, and we're so excited for the shows to come, and hopefully we started to put our mark onto British wrestling beyond. We've had some wonderful messages from people from the wrestling community all around the world that have helped us. You know, we've had some wonderful chats with the likes of Jeff Jarrett and other people, and it's just so exciting that we're able to bring Progress back to that live audience, and can't wait for the future, and especially the shows that are coming up.
Yeah, for sure. And again, we'll get onto those shows as well, because we've mentioned them before. But let's talk about your champion. Let's talk about Cara Noir, because you've given him a tough lead-in, haven't you, since fans have come back? Some tough matches and some even tougher ones to come now. I mean, he's not having an easy time at all in the ring, is he?
No, but he's really risen to it. I mean, I've saw him a few times before we bought the business in part of my research. And I mean, he's such a great character and personality, his passion for not just for wrestling, but for portraying a character is quite remarkable. We've been out to his play fight school. I've seen him train with people, and you know, is an absolutely sincere character, and really gets the heart of what wrestling is all about. The storytelling, the development of characters. You know, we're really sort of so proud that he is our champion, and you know, long may it continue.
Again, you never know what's going to happen in the future.
No, you never know, do you? Especially with the matches you got coming up, you never know.
But you know, we're very, very thankful to have Cara. And again, if you haven't experienced his entrance live, it's absolutely fabulous, and it's something that everybody should experience if they're a British wrestling fan. But it's fair to say, as Bestie rightly said, he's risen to the challenge, and he's got a huge challenge coming up against Jonathan Gresham. Ring of Honor World Championship, Progress World Championship. There will be a winner, and it's going to be very interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. Really looking forward to that one. And again, with that, you mentioned like going to play fight as well. I mean, you sort of picked up on it with the fans thing, but how important is that for you guys that, you know, both with the fans and with the talent, you're seen as more than just like the owners who are there in the background. You're part of it. You're getting to know these guys and girls and be part of their lives like properly.
Yeah, I personally think that's very important, and it's something we've applied during our time at Tranmere. And I think you're a big football fan. I know, if a Brighton fan, a proper dyed in the wool community club. And you see in football so many people come in as owners, and they regard themselves as the owners of the club. And they're not. The fans are the true owners of the clubs. Anyone who owns a football club should just regard themselves as custodian. And there was a philosophy and a phrase that Lee came up with for our current role at Progress. I mean, obviously we are the owners of the business, but the actual heart of Progress, we are just the custodians. We're going to be looking after it for a good few years, I hope. And, whenever we do leave it in the long distant future, we're going to leave it in good shape.
Yeah, I was going to ask. Is been part of a football club, especially a smaller football club in the grand scheme of things. You sort of helped in that sense in terms of what you wanted to achieve and what you wanted to create here at Progress.
Yeah. I mean, well, first and foremost, as a Tranmere fan, I'm going to plead the fifth on you saying it's a smaller club, Jamie. But,
only in the grand scheme. I mean, compared to the bigger club.
Down to interpretation. But I mean, we're very blessed that we're able to be part of Tranmere. It's something that Bestie and I take very seriously, and we're very fortunate to work with some wonderful people such as Mark Palios, the former chief executive of the FA, Nicola Palios. Ben Harrison from the Trust, there's a Mark Richardson, there's so many, Alan, there's so many, gosh, we could keep going on and on, there's some truly wonderful people at Tranmere, and on a personal level, it's some of those experiences and the mentorship that I've had from some of the people I've already mentioned that I've taken into what is now this new British wrestling adventure. And there's no doubt that there is a hell of a lot that you can take from football and put it into wrestling. And that is some of the things that we're looking to do. I mean, interestingly, when it comes to the social media reach and in terms of, if you were to compare, say, for example, Progress to Tranmere, it's actually very, very similar in terms of the engagement, in terms of the impressions. It's very, very similar for the most part. If you did like a median average over the year, I would imagine it would probably work out quite similar. Unless Tranmere, when Tranmere wins something like the FA Cup.
Yeah, of course, when, yeah. Only a matter of time.
Exactly. Well, who would have thought Brighton would be in the Premier League for so long?
I said before we started recording, I would have ripped your arm off for a season in the Premier League when I started supporting Brighton, and we were, I think, facing relegation from League One the season I started supporting. So, it's been quite the rise. But again, I'm sure that's something you can appreciate as Tranmere fans and Tranmere, being related with the club, and yeah, it's just fantastic. But it's also, again, I think those sort of clubs more so, and I'm not doing any disrespect to any big clubs, but those are the clubs where you really see those diehard fans who really stick with it through those tough times, and like that's where you can learn so much again about your fan base and how fans should be treated and what a community club really is all about.
Absolutely, and one of the things that you've got to do is you've got to put yourself in the shoes of the fan, and that's what you have to do, and ask yourself, is there a better experience that can be had? Is there something that we can change? Is there something that we can do that's better? From a Tranmere perspective, we're creating a new fan park, which we're incredibly excited about, and it's something that Bestie has been very much at the forefront of. And again, it's about that experience of what it's like to be a fan, and that's something that we are going to be looking at for Progress in terms of how can we make that experience better for the fans and add more value to what a Club Progress membership looks like. I mean, we're also looking at doing something similar for TNT in the not too distant future as well. And at the same time, we are looking to put the infrastructure that we've put into Progress into TNT, albeit that's going to take a little bit longer for obvious reasons, because we've only just got under the hood of that. But it's amazing how many football fans are wrestling fans. And there's a massive synergy between the two. And we saw that firsthand when, and of course, I mean, why wouldn't he be? But, Jeff Jarrett being a Tranmere fan. And we've actually got a Tranmere shirt with Jarrett number 4.
Amazing.
Currently on the way, because, of course, naturally, Jeff is part of the Four Horsemen. And we can't say otherwise, obviously. But it's those kind of crossovers. And you look at what, for example, Arsenal now do in terms of coming out to the different wrestling themes. And we, another club across the water started to try and copy what we were doing for getting wrestlers to engage with the football club and stuff like that. And we've tried to be at the forefront of kind of the synergies that are between the two. And, who knows what might happen at Prenton Park in the future.
Oh, I was going to say a wrestling extravaganza there would be fab. But I mean, I was going to ask in terms of, I'm going to ask for a different crossover in terms of which Tranmere players do you think would cut it in the ring at Progress?
Peter Clark. Yeah. Absolutely, no doubt. Clarkie, absolute incredible man. I hope he doesn't mind me saying this. I think Clarkie's now 40, Bestie.
Yeah, he was just the other week.
Just 40 the other week. God bless him. He's missed a couple of his front teeth. He absolutely lives, breathes, and dies for Tranmere. And it's funny because I sat next to him for the football awards when both the club, from a marketing perspective, and himself personally won awards. And it was the first time I'd spent some real quality time with him. And what a fantastic, incredible person and a great footballer. And he's certainly someone I wouldn't want to mess with. And a tag team with him and Jay Spearing, I think that could be an interesting proposition for some of our tag teams. That's
Smoking Aces got to watch their back, do they, for the tag titles?
Absolutely. Well, you never know what's going to happen, right? You never know what's going to be around the corner.
God, and then what if I flipped it in a really weird way that I'm sure you probably haven't given any thought at all? But God, which Progress or TNT stars do you think? Oh, they'd cut it on the pitch. They could do a job.
Oh gosh,
who would we have? Well, Smoking Aces would be great central defence, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean they can certainly jump high enough, can't they?
Yeah, I could see Maxted being quite useful up front as a target man.
Yeah, bring the ball down, lay it off to the striker sort of thing.
And we've got a good record with strikers from his part of the world, so that could be an interesting one. But I think Derice is an Aston Villa fan. So we've had some bad luck with Aston Villa over the years when we lost in the semi-final of the League Cup. Still not got over it, even if I was only, I think, 8 years old at the time.
Still lives with you. Always lives with you.
Oh, it does. It actually does. It does. And every time it comes on the news feed, it's always something that makes me feel a little bit bitter.
I can imagine. I think that would be brilliant. That would be great. You've got to get some sort of, again, crossover, like some sort of like fun day where like you get like the roster in like an 11-a-side against Tranmere, and that would just be, that's what's going to sell tickets. I'd buy a ticket for that.
Well, who knows? Watch this space.
Brilliant. And while we're on the subject then of Tranmere and sort of like the area around Liverpool, let's get on to Liverpool because you mentioned TNT. We asked why Progress, but then once you've acquired Progress, why did you want to then branch out even further and go into TNT, which again, like you said, I believe is one of the most underrated promotions, not just in BritWrest, but I think in the entire world. I think they're doing a fantastic job, but so many people seem to not necessarily be unaware of them, but don't seem to realise how great the shows there are.
Well, I think on a personal level, I was going there as a fan, first and foremost, for a long period of time. Under Wrestling Travel, we created a ticketing system called WT Live, which was the way in which people would purchase the tickets for the TNT. And by default, I started to build up a relationship with Jay Apter, Mike Angus, a number of other people that are associated with TNT. And for us, it just made sense. It's a different creative product to Progress in terms of its delivery. It's on our doorstep, and rightly or wrongly, we felt as though with the right infrastructure, it would stop being Britain's best kept secret to a secret that everybody knows about. And hopefully with some of the things that we've been looking at and doing behind the scenes with GCW, for example, I know that we're due to speak with Brett Lauderdale again this week in terms of sorting out some more of the specifics around that. We believe we've got something special in our hands with both brands, and both of which are our children.
For sure. And that must be exciting as well. Talk to me about that GCW crossover show, because I know not too much has been announced about it yet. But just the fact that, I mean, essentially America's biggest sort of like hardcore extreme wrestling promotion coming over here, colliding with BritWrest's biggest extreme wrestling promotion. I mean, it's just going to be an incredible event, I imagine.
Well, absolutely. I mean, initially, before the pandemic, there was meant to be a GCW show. Obviously, we all know what happened with the pandemic, and we won't go over that again. But in terms of the next steps, with Alex versus Clint, again, title versus title. It's GCW versus TNT. There will be a winner. It's a really, really exciting prospect. And from speaking to Brett, I mean, I've dealt with Brett over the years. I mean, Wrestling Travel was the sponsor for the Collective, for example. So I've dealt with Brett a little bit over the years, and we had a great chat about TNT and about Progress and whatnot. In fact, what was quite amusing actually was we were in what is now the Progress HQ in Liverpool, And it was the most bizarre set of meetings that I had back to back to back. I think I spoke to Brett for an hour and a half. I spoke to Jeff Jarrett for an hour and Conrad Thompson for about 45 minutes. And it was just like, this is absolutely just crazy in terms of what we're trying to do together and the creative output and things like that. But very, very excited in terms of what might happen with GCW in the future. And we're looking forward to nailing down more of the specifics. And as soon as we know what they will be, we'll let everybody know.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone's going to be really excited to hear about that. And you mentioned sort of these partnerships again, like with Brett and with Ring of Honor as well, getting obviously Gresham over. I know obviously Ring of Honor is going through its own transition at the minute, but having Gresham over, and it seems like you guys are also quite close and quite chatty, you know, on socials, and I imagine in private as well with other BritWrest promoters across the country. And it seems like this is a thing that really as well as spawned out of the pandemic, where people like promotions are really up for doing sort of crossover sort of things, or just being really funny, helping each other out and helping each other grow. And that's just really lovely to see as a fan, seeing all these promoters sort of work together just to make the scene as a whole a better place.
Yeah, I'm seeing that as well. It's good to have collaboration and have collaboration with, you know, decent people who share some of our same fundamental values. We've overcome, you know, some of the obstacles of the last couple of years and putting on great shows. One of the other things I've really enjoyed in the last few months is going to all the shows. You know, Lee and I have been probably to best part of a dozen different promotions and always welcomed as are people to ours. You know, the venues that they're at, you know, the back of a pub or in a town hall or a civic hall, in a ballroom, you know, in a university area. I mean, the imagination a lot of our fellow promoters used to put on some phenomenal shows. All of them really entertaining, all of them really thoughtful, some great talent in there. And I think as well, you know, everyone who's on a Progress show, rightly or wrongly, I sort of adopt them all and regard them as like our talent. And then I see them in other shows and I hold no grudges to them whatsoever, but it's interesting to see other elements of their characters being developed.
Yeah.
And they can try different things in different shows. And, you know, I view that they're coming back to our show then, you know, better wrestlers, whether that's the right or the wrong way to look at things, but it's just my perspective coming fresh into this sector.
No, I understand that. And that's actually something I wanted to ask you, because sort of like you say, I mean, obviously wrestlers, BritWrest wrestlers are traveling up and down the country working different promotions. And I like to think that each promotion, even though sometimes there's the same talent on them, each promotion has their own pillars, their own, you know, people that you associate most with that promotion. Coming into Progress now and moving it forward, like you say, this new era of Progress, I mean, how excited are you to sort of create your own new pillars of Progress, the new ones that, you know, whether you see them at Catch or at TNT or at North or at Eve, wherever it may be, they associate them as Progress wrestlers, as Progress guys and girls. How excited are you to build those sort of character arcs, those stories, those people for your brand now?
Well, I would say yes, but it's quite a technical question, that, so I'll leave Lee to negotiate his way through that. And I always feel when you're sort of alluding to who do we see as the up and coming ones, for example.
I mean, if you want to tell me that, that's fine. But I just mean in general, like you don't have to give away any sort of names or story arcs that may be coming. But you know,
no, I think in general, just before Lee answers that question in more detail, we've got a huge, interesting roster. The younger ones coming through. The diversity of our last show at the Ballroom showed that. With some youngsters coming through, some more well-established ones. I think the danger of naming names is that you forget about some. Yeah. And they get really cheesed off with you. But just come along to a show, you'll see some great established and up-and-coming talent, and that's what we want to try and do, is give a platform for all to perform.
Yeah, I mean, cheers, Bestie. Yeah, I mean, so Jimmy, we're talking about the pillars of Progress, right? In terms of
not necessarily, you know, names as such, but you know, your excitement about building these new pillars of Progress, or again, if you want, who you sort of see as the people that could be the people that carry Progress forward.
Well, I mean, it again, as Bestie rightly said, it's probably not right to name names, but of course, I mean, by default, you look at someone like Cara Noir. By default, Progress World Champion, has been for a record amount of time. So we would argue that Cara is very much a pillar of Progress. But that's not to say that he's the only pillar of Progress. The reality is that it's a team effort. We've got to come together as a team. And of course, one of the things that we do is that we're on the lookout for who we think we would like to see on Progress or TNT for that matter. And one of the things that the Best alluded to before was that we have been to a number of promotions, and we've been very thankful in terms of how we've been welcomed at those shows. And Bestie put it best, actually. So I'm not going to say his phrase because it was absolutely brilliant, but I'll pass it back to Bestie and then I'll carry on. But Bestie said the phrase of
the revolving door with a welcome mat at each entry. Because I've heard of this phrase, the forbidden door, which I thought, I'm always one who believes there's no such thing as a stupid question. The only stupid question is the one you don't ask if you don't know. So I said, what's this forbidden door thing? And it just seemed to be broadly nonsense. I can understand contractual obligations of wrestlers, that's fine. And clearly WWE and AEW are, the leaders in that. And they're phenomenally large organizations who want some certainty around their talent. But then, why could we not share every now and then? And most absolutely, you were seeing that happening in British wrestling. So, our door is open to any wrestler who wants to showcase their skills and their talents and their performance.
Yeah.
For me, Progress was always about building the next generation of stars. And we feel that that's also part of our responsibility. But it's also the fine balance about bringing people in to Progress that are going to add huge amounts of value. Now, initially, people were thinking that Gresham was just going to come in for one show. It's obvious that he's not just been for one show. And we're about the storylines. We want to be able to tell great stories with the fabulous talent that we have. And yes, of course, Progress will always be associated with the likes of Pete or Walter or Gunther, as he's now known. I'll plead the fifth on that one.
We won't go into that.
But there's always going to be certain people that you associate with Progress, but it's a new era, and of course, the likes of Pete is always welcome to come back to Progress. I'm sure there's other stars that would be held in that same regard, but it's about the new era. It's about trying to get the fans invested into the talent more. And one of the things that we are looking to do is to do more promos, more vignettes. So there is a greater understanding of what the characters of the talent are, so people can become more invested. That is something that we are working on at the moment. But of course, we've got to understand that we are new to this. We've inherited a lot of stuff, some of which we may not have necessarily agreed with, but we're doing our very best given the circumstances. And we're learning fast, we're learning quick, and hopefully the product quality will be better. The talents are starting to understand how we work. We're firm but fair. We've got a certain way of doing things and extremely high standards in terms of how we do things behind the scenes. And again, that's all part of putting the word professional into professional wrestling. But hopefully, there's going to be many more new pillars to come. And but of course, it's down to the fan base to decide who those pillars may be. And when we see the reactions of the fans in the ballroom, we listen, we view, we watch. And when we go to different promotions and we see people, we view, we watch. And but it is part of our responsibility to ensure that there is a new generation of stars coming through.
Absolutely. And something else I wanted to pick up on, which sort of intrigued me because I hadn't really sort of thought about it hugely until it was sort of brought to my attention more on social media. And I hope you don't take this as a negative, because I'm not meaning it as negative. This is me just generally really curious about your opinion on it. So something that a lot of people on social media have been talking about is sort of the ticket prices for Progress shows, considering the fact that, as we've mentioned, a lot of BritWres stars are BritWres stars that you can see on other shows across the country, who may say have cheaper tickets. But like in that regard, do you guys feel a sort of almost not necessarily a pressure, but that fire to make these shows worth that ticket price in terms of say the other stars you bring in or the match quality or whatever else it is you may offer, in terms of justifying sort of that price and why it's higher than say somewhere else where you could see the same BritWrest stars, if you catch what I'm saying?
Yeah, I can see the point that you made very valid, and I would only answer that by saying what we're doing is creating an infrastructure around to enable the talent to absolutely be showcased at their best. The quality of the shows, the storylines behind it, the lighting, the music, and then the ultimate production values that are captured for fans who aren't able to come and see us live. So we are trying to keep our prices, absolutely within the budget of our fans. We absolutely are not looking to take advantage of any situation there. And if we feel that our pricing is wrong, we'll adapt to that.
Sure. No, perfectly put. I totally understand, and I get it. I absolutely do. And again, well, you sort of mentioned the ballroom as well before. Talk to me about the ballroom as Progress is home, because I think, again, we were talking about wrestlers synonymous with the company. I think when people think Progress, they think the Electric Ballroom. So talk to me about the ballroom as a venue, what you love about it, what makes it the perfect home for Progress Wrestling.
Great question. Unless you've experienced it live in the ballroom, I think it's a really hard thing to describe the atmosphere and what it's like. And in fact, without getting contentious about it, from one of the reviews, it was the last crowd seemed to be quiet, and we thought actually it's definitely louder than the last one. But again, that's only what our opinion. And we saw it in a way in which people were getting more confident from coming out of the pandemic, and were starting to build new relationships with fellow fans, because there's a lot of Progress fans that come on their own, but they know they're going to be able to meet people, have great chats with one another. And the ballroom is the epicenter of the Progress community, of everybody coming together as one. And that's not to say that our shows in Manchester or the other venues across the world that we've got planned for are less, but there's no doubt it is the spiritual home of Progress. And as far as we're concerned, it will always be the spiritual home of Progress. And it's just such a special place to be. And it's just little things. It's like when you see, we feel so fortunate in the fact that everybody wants to line up outside and queue up outside and, before the show starts. And we always feel bad. I mean, what was quite funny for the last show is it was starting to rain and I felt bad. So I bought a load of umbrellas. And nobody wants the umbrellas. Said next time, will you come and bring us beer instead? I was like, okay, well, I'm learning. I've learned it quick. But it is, again, it comes back to that, treating people how you want to be treated. And just because we're the custodians / owners of Progress doesn't mean that we should be treating ourselves any differently to how we'd want to be treated outside the venue. But it is. I mean, that's the thing about Progress. You've got to now experience it live. For the full product, you have to experience it live, and we're trying to encourage people to do that. But at the same time, what have we got to do? We've got to create new eyeballs on Progress for people that might necessarily know or understand what Progress is all about. And that's also one of the things that we're trying to do by getting involved with different news outlets and agreeing to do slightly more left field type interviews, because the more eyeballs we can get onto Progress, in our opinion, the better it is for British wrestling and beyond. The more eyeballs there is, the better it is for everybody else, and the better show we can put on. And that's what we're trying to do. But if you've not been to the ballroom live, please try and make that happen, because it is and of course we're biased, of course we are, but it's such an amazing experience to watch. Again, biased again, but in our opinion, the peak of British professional wrestling right now.
Absolutely.
Well, having said that's the spiritual home, obviously the first home was the garage.
Yeah, I was going to lead on to that in terms of the fact that, again, these anniversary shows, the Dome and the Garage, both places where Progress have traditionally hosted shows, and fans know Progress hosting shows. Yeah. And I mean, both for the Dome, but again, like you mentioned, the Garage. Let's talk about the Garage first. I mean, how important was it for this 10th anniversary show to go back to where it began for you guys, rather than, say, have it at the Ballroom or somewhere else?
Yeah, I think it was an entire recognition of what Progress is about, the history, the heritage, the tradition, and totally respecting that. We could have held it at the ballroom. I'm sure we'd have sold that out. The garage takes quite a bit less, but we just felt that was the right place to be for the 10th anniversary shows.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, well, as we're leading up as well to that show when this goes out, talk to me about that main event, because obviously Kara's facing Gresham the week before, and then he's going to take on Ilya, and their rivalry is so storied in Progress and beyond. Really, it's fantastic. I mean, how excited are you to just essentially rekindle that, to get it back going?
Yeah. And the moment when Ilya stood behind Kara,
I saw a video online. It was electric. It was
goosebump moment, even for me, as a relative newcomer to this. I totally got the emotion behind there, and the fans, the intake of breath when the lights came back on, and there was Ilya behind him. It was magnificent.
Yeah, absolutely. And we spoke.
Nobody was expecting that, Jamie, really.
Never. I think with from what I've seen from Progress so far, is really expect the unexpected in every show at the minute.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, but also as well, and I think this is probably an important point for us to say in line with that, is that anybody that's going to be on a Progress show goes through a huge amount of due diligence, know that they are a fit and proper person to be on a Progress show, and we need the fans to have a sense of understanding that we will do everything within our power to ensure that we only work with people that we feel should be on the Progress. And of course, the two people that come to mind is, of course, you've got Anthony Ogogo, an Olympic athlete with a wonderful pedigree. I've got no doubt that Anthony's got an unbelievable future ahead of him. Of course, Ilya needs no introduction whatsoever. And I have to say, on a personal level, going back to Bestie's point of the goosebumps, I mean, it was absolutely unbelievable but of course, it's things, because we're very fortunate the fact that we have people lining up to get into the venues first. Of course, that also creates some practical difficulties in terms of trying to ensure people can't be seen.
Yeah, the secrecy of it, yeah.
Absolutely. But I have to say I appreciate this is going out at a later point, but it's going to be an unbelievable match, and we are so excited to see what the outcome will be.
Well, Lee, again, there's something that I really appreciate you bringing up, because again, it's something where, again, we won't go too deep into it, but over the last couple of years, people again now are like, about mainly sort of surprise guests, surprise appearances, and not in terms of who they might be, but in terms of you guys. How important is it with all that's happened, with all the people that are sort of, say, maybe a bit tentative about surprise appearances, that what you've started to do again in terms of talking to fans, the Progress members, on Zoom and stuff? How important is it for you guys to show people that they can have that trust in you to do the right thing, to run the company the right way, and to not necessarily maybe make those mistakes that people are fearing?
It's incredibly important, but that's also where the fan base has to put their trust into Bestie and I as custodians. Now, of course, we can only do what we can do, but I think one of the best compliments we had on the first show was a well-known talent basically almost saying, wow, this is actually more than I've experienced in one of the biggest companies in the world. So for us, we saw that as a massive compliment, the fact that actually we're doing things right. And yes, there is a lot of paperwork behind the scenes, and we at least the best of our knowledge and understanding, we definitely go far and away beyond in terms of ensuring that there's a whole host of practicalities that are checked off and taken care of. That includes criminal background checks, amongst other things, and protocols and codes of conduct and other things. And that's all part of what we're trying to do to bring Progress into a new era. And we understand that our relationship with the fans is a really important one, and it's not something we take for granted.
Absolutely. No, perfectly said. Yeah.
And we've made ourselves really visible, and it's not an ego thing. It's just because we don't want to be seen to be hiding behind anything. We're not going to be stuck away in any sort of safe environment away from the fans. We're part of the fans. We'll greet them as they come in. We walk around during the event, stand next to them, watch it, for all sorts of reasons, different perspectives, chat to people, what do you think of the show. We want to get real grassroots feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's so important. And as a fan as well, that's great to hear. And it's fantastic to hear you guys say that and be so open and honest about it, which is lovely. I mean, just a couple of more things before we sort of wrap up. But I mean, I'm interested in you guys specifically in terms of your individual, I guess, ones to watch from Progress or from TNT, in terms of, for people that may be new to the product, obviously a lot of people know Progress. Like we've said, TNT is one of the UK's best kept secrets. But in either promotion, for both of you guys individually, as one question each. I mean, who are the ones that you get the most excited for? Who would be your ones to watch if someone were to come up to you and be like, at a show, if someone was to say like, oh, I've not been here before, like, who's worth watching? And you'd be like, this person. Who would that be for each of you?
Well, that's a good one. I think Roman Reigns has got a good future ahead of him.
Just a little, right? Yeah, he's doing quite. He's up and comer, right?
I'd love him on a Progress show.
You can have him on like the pre-show, the kickoff, that would be fine.
Well, all he has to do is ask us.
Yeah.
Or Bryan Danielson, but no. I mean, again, I'm not for one sitting on the fence, but I think I'd be doing everybody a disservice by mentioning one specific person. To be honest with you, because it's very much a team effort. It really, really is. And for us, it doesn't matter whether you're at the bottom of the card or the top of the card, you're just as important because we're all trying to make the best show we possibly can. And I think in terms of, instead of the people saying specific people, I think our actions can speak louder than the words ever can. And by doing that, you need to see the TNT shows or the Progress shows live. TNT, for example, has its Ignition show, which has got some fantastic up-and-coming talent. Cameron Solas is the champion at present. And it's all about trying to look in terms of how the crowd are reacting to people. But ultimately, if you're on one of our shows, or you're going to be on one of our shows in the future, then I think that will tell you a lot in terms of who we see as the ones to watch.
For sure. No, very well put.
If you're wanting some sort of answer about names, if I give you a slightly different perspective of what I'm really quite excited about is the women wrestlers that we have on our roster. They maintain their femininity and their grace, their athleticism, and yet, there they are in a vaguely brutal sort of sport and environment, but really coming out as really great role models for both, young men and young women.
Yeah, for sure.
So I would say that's one of the things, if you're wanting to identify something that we're doing a bit differently, that we're really proud of.
No, absolutely. I mean, we've spoken to wrestlers on here before that have, we've just spoken about how great the Brit Wrest women's scene is as a whole. Like, it's really thriving. There's so much talent there, strength in depth as well, which is fantastic. And I'm sure that's something you guys will be showcasing in your women's show as well next week from when this is going out.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so in that case, obviously, I appreciate you don't want to name specific wrestlers. What about in terms of, since you've taken over, since fans have been back, what about favourite matches at Progress? What are the ones that sort of stand out for you that have sort of like blown you away?
He's determined to get names. I think the three bouts that Cara's been involved in, each in their different ways, been fairly spectacular.
Always are with Cara. They always are.
Great wrestling, great to watch. Outcomes, uncertain right to the very end. He conducts himself tremendously well. The fight the other week with Swerve was incredible. I thought he was going to lose, really. A great comeback.
Absolutely.
So they're our champion. I thought on the women's, Giselle against Rio was an excellent fight. That ended well, and then Kanji coming out and challenging Giselle. We're looking forward to that developing.
Absolutely. That's going to be a great rivalry to continue as well.
Smoking Aces, I think if you took one little incident in Manchester, I mean, that exceptionally well prepared, carefully rehearsed fully regarding for the health and safety and well-being of everyone, a dive from 40 foot off a balcony.
Jeez, it's the great moment, though, wasn't it? Great moment, absolutely incredible. Absolutely
yeah, bless Nick, and I'm glad his mum's now recovered.
And that's the thing, though, isn't it? Especially Progress. You know, we talk about all of Progress, really, but in terms of just wrestling as well, but Progress specifically, it's about creating those moments, isn't it? It's about creating those moments that fans walk away from, and that night, that week, the next month, the next 6 months, they look back and they're like, "Oh, do you remember that?"
Absolutely. I mean, there's so many matches. You come back to your original point, Jamie, that I've taken massive amounts of pride in just terms of feeling, you know, a small part of that process. But in Manchester, when Gresham came out and literally the chants back and forth, you know, it was just absolutely crazy to the point where we almost had to kind of like intervene to stop the chants to actually get the match started and to get everything going. That was a real goosebumps kind of moment, that's for sure. But yeah, I mean, again, apologies if it sounds like I'm on the fence, but you know, we're so happy with all of the talent and what they're doing, and the fact that they're always willing to go the extra mile for us. And we've started to try and go that extra mile for them in other ways, and we've got some really cool things planned behind the scenes that we'll be putting some releases out in the future that are a little bit different, dare I say it, compared to what British wrestling's been used to.
Sure.
So there's a lot of exciting stuff that's on there. But I mean, for me, you know, even from the first match when Gene Money came out in the space outfit, because we'd worked behind the scenes on the comeback video that was space related. That was, and by the way, I'm certainly not saying he's going to be on Super Strong Style, by the way.
We asked him about that. You read my mind.
By the way, Gene, we understand that you keep showing us your flags and trying to say you should be on Super Strong Style, but, you know, not happening, pal. You know, not happening, Gene. Sorry, mate.
It's incredible you say that. From when we're filming this week, we got an interview with Gene Money going out, and we did ask him about that, and he said he was quite open. He was like, "I'm not on it yet, but like, you know, he pushes for it, doesn't he?"
Well, he does, and you know, we very much appreciate the fact he's pushing for it, but it doesn't mean he's going to be on it.
Oh, he's a worthy candidate, I would say. I love his sense of humour and the characters that he developed.
This is it, Gene for Strong Style. It's gonna get going again. Now that this is all out, it's gonna start trending.
He can pitch for it. He can wave his flags. He can call us, you know, like 25 times a day, asking us and tweet us. And you know, when we announced Swerve to be our first competitor in Super Strong Style, and he put the tweet out saying, "That's not my name." Well, it's not your name, Gene. You know, we're sorry about that. But that aside, having him as part of that first match that tied into the promo video with the space theme and bringing it back was very, very special.
He said that as well. Yeah, he said that how special that was for him as a moment to come out with those fans. And he said, you know, I'm sure he won't mind me saying this because he said it in our interview, which will already be out by this point. But he said he was glad he was wearing the visor on the helmet because he was like shedding a tear and he didn't want people to see it. And like, yeah, it's just lovely that that's what it meant to him. And for so many people as well, like you say, the fans and the wrestlers to come back to Progress with fans, especially after so long with the closed tapings. It's fantastic to show there was that love for it still, that passion for Progress still after what everyone had been through in the last couple of years.
Absolutely, and let's be frank about it. Wrestling without fans is beyond difficult to watch.
Yeah,
but
agreed.
When we were doing the due diligence and we were catching up on what we class as the pandemic era, if you haven't seen it, watch the Cara Noir Gene Money match. It's magnificent. It's really, really good. Really good.
It's such a shame fans weren't there to see that match because it was an incredible match. Yeah. And the fans there were just giving it that lift, that boost.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, Demand Progress, our online video streaming, does capture it quite well. And it's still available.
Great one.
And it's just coming back to Bestie's point on that, is that whilst we would very much tell people to come watch it live, if you also want the full experience, including any extra matches and things like that, that's to be seen on Demand Progress, and of course the rest of the stuff will be on the WWE Network, and will also be on Peacock, and I believe we're actually on Disney Plus, I think, in the Philippines.
Really? Oh wow!
I think so.
Everywhere.
I might be wrong on that, by the way, but that was something that I think is either happening or happened.
Ah, that's amazing. That's really glowing global, which is fantastic. That's absolutely brilliant to see. Guys, I really appreciate your time to chat to me. It's been fantastic chatting, getting to know all about your passions for wrestling and why Progress is so important to you, as it is for all of us fans as well. We always leave each interview with giving our guests a bit of promo time, and I know you've had plenty already, but we'll give you one more final bit. In terms of, really simply, if anyone watches this and hasn't been to a Progress show or a TNT show, why are these two promotions that people should come and check out in BritWres?
I would say, give us a chance. We're trying everything we possibly can to bring British professional wrestling into a new era. And to do that, we need extra eyeballs, we need extra bums on seats, to the point that you're going to come to a show and not just watch it online. And if you haven't been to a TNT or a Progress show before, or if you haven't been to one for a while, give us a chance, because we really believe that the quality of the product we're putting out there will get you hooked again, will get you believing again. And if you've got a friend out there that doesn't know much about it, invite them, and collectively, for the better good of British professional wrestling, let's grow this scene again. Let's make it better again. And let's do things that put smiles on everybody's faces, so the talent have bigger distribution channels, the fans have even more great wrestling to watch, and collectively we can do that. And of course, we sincerely hope that's going to be either TNT or Progress, but support British wrestling as a whole.